the men that I find on the apps, at least the ones that I've maybe been blessed to find or energetically match with, they're similar to me. Yes, they're dissociated. Yes, we're not really looking at each other, but there's a way that we both know we have this human need, and we're using this app as the interface. I have only been violated by the technology. I have only been violated by the dopamine producing cycle that I go into, but not by the men.
Welcome to the Holistic Life Navigation Channel. I'm your host, Luis Mujica. I'm a somatic educator and nutritionist, and I'm here to explore every aspect of life through the lens of somatic psychology, nutrition, and philosophy. Let's dive in. Okay, everybody, I have a very, very special episode for you today. I had put the call out and requested some friends and colleagues, and some wrote in. And from all the gaggle of beautiful gays in my life, I was able to obtain these four wonderful men to talk about something that I've just been gnawing on for a bit, which is how are sex apps and hookup apps affecting the gay community and gay culture. And so I have four beautiful men I'm going to introduce you to in a moment, and they'll tell you a bit about their modality, anything they've done, something about themselves, and then we're going to dive into the conversation. And after they give their introductions, I'll tell you a little bit more about my curiosities and what sparked this interest in me having the conversation to begin with. So let's start with my dear friend, Al.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Luis. I'm very excited to dive into this topic with you and these wonderful people. I live in the Hudson Valley of New York, and I am a shamanic practitioner and a musician, sound healer, and have worked with many people over the years in reference to relationships, and this topic has come up quite a lot in a lot of my work and with friends, and I'm really looking forward to diving into this and hoping to help somebody out there, or even myself.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Rio.
Hi, happy to be here. I work with gay men primarily in my work, which is coaching and healing work, emotional healing, and do a lot of work specifically around compulsive behaviors that keep people stuck. And for gay men, hookup porn can certainly be behaviors that keep them stuck and locked in patterns. So, and it's very personal to me because for decades, this was also my own challenge, and I sought conversations like these. So I'm very happy to be here, hoping to get some clarity with you all and share what I see, and hopefully add to conversations that could be helpful for others.
Thank you, Rio. Naveed.
Hello, Naveed here from Denver, Colorado. I'm an unshaming facilitator. I support men, mostly men are my clients who come to me, breaking the cycle of shame and addiction. And I also support you, Luis, with the men's work, embodied men's group that we do. I have a podcast called From Boys to Men, A Journey Through Masculinity. And in it, I bring up all the topics. I talk about all the things that men rarely go public about. And one of those things is like the absence of mentorship that we had. And I just want to name, like, I'm feeling so touched because not only did I lack male mentorship, I definitely lacked a community like this, like gay or queer male mentorship. And just looking at you all right now, I make a story that I'm the youngest one, and I just feel, I feel like the pre-tears coming here. I'm just like, wow, these are men that I really want to learn from. I'm so glad that we're here today.
I'm touched, and I also wonder, is that a tinge of shade? Like, looking here, I assume I'm the youngest one. Just checking. I'll leave that be for now. Tim.
Hey, y'all. I'm Tim Pauly. I'm a somatic coach in the Bay Area, and I like to think of myself as a countercultural somatic coach. I'm really interested in people who've begun to sense in their body there's something not quite right about how this is all going. There's something structurally off. I'm in discordance with the way it is, the system. And so the perspective I want to bring to this convo is some of that structural stuff, but also to gay culture. Like, what is it like to question gay culture? And so when Luis put out the post that felt a little bit provocative to me initially because they were comparing how we treat straight men and how we treat gay men. And I felt myself a little riled up about what felt like maybe some stereotypes or misconceptions. And I felt like I wanted to defend myself. But I want to defend myself from heterosexism, homophobia, and people in the queer community who say I should or shouldn't this or that. And I'm trapped in it. So that complexity is really what brought me in here today. And I'm happy to spend time with y'all.
So I'm going to do a little intro around what made me want to do this and what was behind some of the words that Tim read that provoked him. And, Rio was open. He reached out to my call of people who wanted to be part of this. And Naveed and Al have been part of my life. And we talked about these things in many ways. And I thought, well, they have to be part of this. And a lot of other men that wanted to be part of this that couldn't because they have too much shame to talk about it publicly. That was a lot of things I was hearing. Some just different time zones didn't work out logistically. But when I put these things out that I often think I'm the only one thinking, it's always so touching to, one, see how many people are also harboring these thoughts and feelings and experiences. And I wouldn't know if I didn't put it out myself and risk being disliked for doing so. But someone like Tim, perfect example, who is provoked, who is triggered, who feels a sense of defense, and from that place still chooses to use his techniques and practices of embodiment to connect out of that defense instead of further divide. I really respect that. So I was especially happy when you reached out because I wanted to have a voice here that also had some piece of defense, not even in a negative way, but that has a protection, that has a sense of, I don't want to go with the full narrative you're putting out, Luis. Like that feels really important to me. And so, like I said to all of you before the recording started, this is a discussion. It's not a debate. We are all free to say whatever we want based on our opinions and our experiences, and we're all free to disagree with each other or agree. So we'll see where this goes, and that's what I'm most excited about, all the pieces that we'll put together with each other and for each other. I think what really interested me, and it's something I want you all to think about, and I'm going to ask you individually after this. I don't know one male gay couple that's not on hookup apps. And that's new. Because when I was growing up, I knew many male gay couples. That there was one primarily that were my mentors when I was coming out of high school, and they literally saved my life, these two. And I knew a lot of gay men and lesbians, but I'm not really counting women here. I'm making this about men because it's a very male-dominated thing. The hookup world and the way it's built, I believe, is through a male lens as well. And most of the gay men I've met, let's say 10 years ago and earlier, they were in long-term monogamous relationships, the ones that really valued and wanted marriage and that kind of lifestyle. Because there is a split still in the gay community. There's queer culture, which I would actually say is different from primary gay experiences. Queer culture usually tends to be against the norm. It tends to be more counterculture. It tends to be more like, let's turn things upside down. Whereas early gay culture, especially gays that were really trying to liberate themselves and become more assimilated and have marriage and have equal rights, they weren't really against the norm. They were trying to integrate into the norm and not be as fringe. So I think it's an important thing to start with, just to say out loud. I think it's an interesting difference, not right or wrong, just different. But I got really fascinated in the last 5 years in particular, which says a lot because the pandemic forced us onto screens more than ever. I saw so many long-term monogamous gay men suddenly open up their relationships. And the result of opening up the relationships weren't deeper connection with each other. It was more rupture, more betrayal, more trauma. I'm talking dozens of men, not just like one or two friends in my life. And that started really interesting me. And along with that was this difference, and this is what Tim was speaking to that I wrote about, this difference in standards and expectations amongst how a gay man has sex and how a straight man has sex. And I would see this specifically through the lens of women. So if I was out to dinner with friends, or I was online, or I was watching a show, whatever it was, if a woman was talking to a male friend who was gay, and he was saying, I hooked up with this guy last night, and I've even heard this exact phrase, and his wife was out of town, the girl, his friend would be like, you bad bitch, you get it, girl. Like this kind of like reward of like, yep, that's what gay guys do. I personally find that a bit offensive. And I got really curious. I'm like, now, if you're a straight guy and you said to a woman, I had sex with her boyfriend, instantly you would be, what's wrong with you? That's misogynistic, that's patriarchal. And I've seen these things go on over and over again over the last 8 years, but even more over the last 2 years. So I got really curious, like, why is it okay for a gay man to have sex with another man on an app who's cheating on his partner? But it's not as rewarded and okay. There's no high five when it's a straight man doing it. There's a different standard there. So these are the things I've been sitting with, I've been observing, I've been curious about myself. I come from hookup culture, back in the Craigslist days, and then I'm a bisexual man. I fell in love with a woman, and I've been with her in a monogamous relationship for 15 years now. So it's been very challenging for me to come from a place of being really open sexually and fluid, primarily with men. I felt primarily homosexual for the majority, early part of my life. Then to fall in love with a woman that touched me in a way a man never did. So it was a massive identity shift, and I've been settling into it over the last decade, more than ever before. But even being in this relationship, I'm also learning these differences of how women have expected me to show up to their bodies and how men have. So I'm just curious about all this, and I bring my experience to the table with that curiosity. So with all that being said, I want to start with the beginning. Can we first settle into this notion of, do we know any gay men who are in long-term relationships who aren't hooking up? And if anyone knows, I'd just prefer you to unmute yourself and share. You don't say their name, of course, but do you actually have any that you know?
I know one couple.
Anyone else?
I know a couple, but they, for decades, were open and started their relationship open and had a lot of sex in their relationship with other people, bringing other people in outside of the relationship. And it's interesting because now it's almost like they've utilized all of their sexual energy, in the way that they talk about sex now is that they don't have it and they're not having it with anybody else. And it's just like, okay, we're done, because of those years of sex pretty much dominating their lives.
Interesting. And Tim and I'm assuming you don't know anyone that's in a monogamous gay relationship.
I think so, but I think also some couples are very private and maybe not always let people know that they are. I mean, I believe I know of one couple that is a monogamous long-term relationship. They have never alluded that they are open, but I do know of one. If I go back, pre-COVID, I knew a lot. And now that has changed.
So this is where I want to go into with all of you, because as I'm saying this, I can hear to the listener, maybe even some of you, it sounds like I'm coming to this from like a pro-monogamy stance, which I'm actually not. I'm coming to it from what Al just said. The curiosity for me was there was a sudden shift. The way he said, like before COVID, after it changed. There was a shift where there was a period of time where it was typical for me to meet gay men that were in long-term monogamous relationships. And it just wasn't even a thing that they would think about. And then it became really common to use hookup apps, especially, like I said, post-COVID, when we were all on these apps even more and on our screens. And this is the part I want to highlight. And this is where I want everyone's insight. It's not that there's something wrong about opening up your marriage. It's I haven't seen those open marriages create lasting relationships with the couple. I've seen this thing happen where they open it up and they create this distance with each other. And it turns into a lot of betrayal, a lot of trauma, a lot of soothing, and they're not really dealing with the issues they had that caused them to open up in the first place. This is my limited experience. Tim, enrich me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wanted to add, there probably are couples in my life who are monogamous, and When what you're pointing to is this post-pandemic surge in the experience of your friend group or your connections, where you're seeing something that wasn't previously a norm become a norm, or like a super common aspect of the culture. I think personally, I would tie that more to like these apps are like any app that you use. They're designed and there's an algorithm that tells you what you want, how to find it, and how to find it more easily, and how to keep reinforcing that. And so these are products that are designed to be addictive and to keep you on your screen, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Grindr, whether it's Sniffies, whatever app you're using. Craigslist did not quite have that aspect, and there is a shift. So when I want to pin that shift and the explosion of how prevalent this is, it's that these apps are out, widespread, addictive, and viral. Like they go viral. So to me, I would tie it more to the technology feeding something like this rather than something that shifted in the psyches of gay men. It's more like a co-opting. And what you were saying made me think about my first relationship, which was like completely in the closet, zero sex. The first man that I had an orgasm with was the guy who I ended up spending 10 years with. So like this first relationship was potent and powerful, so meaningful in so many ways. And we started off not even really talking about whether we'd be open or not. We were just a couple. And little by little, we began to discuss that. He was aware that I was kind of early in a sexual awakening. He was 10 years older, had also been sexually active a lot longer. So we quote unquote opened our relationship. And I just wanted to point to this as well, is that there's monogamous, there's open and using the apps all the time, but there is this other middle path that to me represents almost like the best of us, which was we were open and he was like, if you have an experience that you want to go towards or you feel drawn towards, then do it. And keep me posted, both from a emotional point of view and from an STI point of view, but like, let me know about it. And what that translated into in the pre-app days was very occasionally something would come up and I had a freedom to move towards it. And I had his blessing and we had communication about it. And I actually do see a number of my open gay couple friends navigate and operate like that. They're all being affected by the virality and the power of the algorithm of the apps. We're all getting lost in it. We're all noticing we're getting lost in it. We're all noticing the negative effects. But there is this model that I experienced and that I think a lot of people are actually aiming for or partially living in, where they actually are kind of like dabbling and following their heart and experiencing freedom from monogamous, like heterosexual kind of models. But it's a slippery slope these days.
Yeah, that's a beautiful piece to bring in. I wanted to get to that at some point, but I'm glad you brought it up already. Just the dopamine hit and the addictive nature of an app versus Craigslist versus meeting somebody at a bar versus suddenly having your heart flutter when you run into someone at art school. You know, these what you said, occasional experiences, which I think that to me is kind of a word I wanted to underline, because when I heard you saying that, I felt this sense of my own occasional experiences, that it comes from within me. It's not something this product has been created that's impressing onto me. It's like the desire, the heart opening, the turn on comes from within me. And then that's a moment, depending on the kind of relationship you're in, if you're allowed to act on that or invite your partner to come act on it with you or fantasize about it with your partner, wherever that goes. I think that's a gorgeous, gorgeous freedom. And I feel that in my body and see that as freedom compared to being completely addicted to an app that is dominating you through an algorithm and a design. So I really appreciate that difference. Naveed, where are you going with this?
That is also where I'm going. The domination of the apps, the tech piece. Like when I first got Grindr, what was it, 8 months ago or something? I don't think I slept for 48 hours. And my profile name was I Want Facials. And I was on this, it was a game to me. It was like a gamify. Like, how many facials can I get in 48 hours? I got 4, by the way. 2 are from the same man though. So I don't know if you want to count that as 3 or 4. And even the way I say it, right, there's like, oh, I got four, like there's like the thing you were talking about, like the celebratory, like false nature of it. But it's a game in my system. It's become quite a game. And I think I'm thinking about, like, in COVID, all these like Instacart and ordering your groceries became so available. It's like the same thing. Oh, I can have a man on my doorstep in less than an hour. I mean, I literally could download the app right now, and by the end of our podcast, someone could be here and we'd be sucking each other's dicks. Like, that's how immediate it is. I haven't seen anything more rapid than that. Not even groceries could get here as quickly as that. And so for me, I also see it, and I've been in the gay culture far less than most people, or than most gay men, I guess. I'm a queer man. If there was an app that you could get female people as quickly, I would be on that probably just as much as the gay one, because for me it's more about the immediacy of it. The closest thing for finding females would be sex workers and escorts and like sites like Tryst, and which I have gone on before. But even that sometimes isn't as immediate as Grindr.
So that I'm glad you brought the heterosexual experience in, because it's part of what informs my curiosity around this. And I think an important piece of this is one reason why I say this affects the gay community. I'm not talking about the straight community here. The reason I think it affects the gay community is men are very different with how they work with their arousal than women. And when you have a man with a woman, you won't get that immediacy unless you are paying her, because women are, whether we like it or not, with gender roles, they are attached to security in a way men just don't tend to be sexually. We have a way higher threshold for even sexual disgust. Like, men can be more turned on by something that a woman will be so shut down about. You have to really work hard, your body, clean up, not smell a certain way in order to have her even want to be with your body. There's a lot more steps you have to go through. That was shocking for me after many years of being with men, by the way. That was a big one for me to have to overcome and learn, because they don't teach you that one. In gay bisexual school, they don't teach you that one at all. But it's an important piece, because that's what I found with why I think it's affecting gay community in a way that it's not with straight community, is there's these certain guide rails within the polarity of man and woman, of almost like a speed bump, literally, of, you feel quick, your male arousal is turned on, you want to get a blowjob right now. There has to be a relational or security aspect there, as kind of like you may enter. And when there isn't, women feel deep disgust, regret, and shame, and usually retract for a long, long time, whereas men can bounce back way quicker. And I think my curiosity here, even with saying that, is I kind of what Naveed said in his introduction. I don't think that's actually how do I say this? Just because we're men, I don't think that's how we have to be. I think testosterone and biology and conditioning creates this massive arousal response. But most of us, as we were developing, we didn't have male role models to teach us how to work with that sexual response. So this is the interesting thing, again, but in my experience, having heterosexual experiences and homosexual ones, I never had a man pause me. I never had a man ask me, are you coming from your heart before I go down on you? Never. So I never had this experience where there was like, well, where are you before we do this? Women, almost exclusively, that's been my experience. So I would love to also, I'm bringing this whole other piece here, but one reason why this is so pervasive and addictive for gay communities in particular is I think men are so conditioned to not feel their bodies during sex. We use porn way more than women do in puberty and development. So when you have that same sex experience that has the same conditioning and developmental experience around dissociation with sex, you don't really have anyone in the room waking each other up. Unless you have a man who's very embodied and has studied his body, and I think invokes feminine and masculine in this beautiful, fluid way, and can have those kind of speed bumps, right? So you remove those speed bumps, and then you have this addictive app, as we're talking about, and then you have the male sex drive with kind of no constraints. And to me, it just seems like an unsustainable future. Rio, what's coming up for you around that?
Well, the first thing is I check in with my body is that my heart rate has raised because the experience of not being embodied, and having what I look back on as self-violation, where my body was saying no so many times. Um, and there were all of the cues there, and I felt like there was something wrong with me because this was standard. Like, why don't we just show up? I'm going to fuck you, and then I'm going to leave. And my body was like, no, I don't want to do that. So I spent years getting high or drunk, to bypass what my body was telling me. And this was previous to even knowing that I had been sexually abused. And yeah, so it's very resonant for me. And it pains me that so many of the men that I work with also have had so many experiences of self-violation because it was the only way that they knew how to get close to another man. And I've seen people in such pain, acknowledging how many times, right? We go into a breathwork session, or we just go into their body and spend a little time exploring, and they realize that a large portion of their sexual experiences were just to get close to another man emotionally, physically, without having to give of themselves or objectify the other person or objectify themselves. And the amount of damage that that does is so great. And yeah, it makes me quite sad. And it's why I'm doing the work that I do now.
Just want to pause because I feel my emotions with you and I hear it in your voice. And I so relate to that experience. And that's such an important experience to bring in because most men who are gay or bisexual or queer, we're targets when we're growing up. And there's the one part about, we think about the word marginalized. There's one part of you don't see yourself reflected in society. You're the minority, you're the margin of a sexuality, which we've all experienced here. And that's difficult enough. But then there's this further trauma that we don't even think of as trauma because it almost gets conflated as queer or gay sexuality, which is the violation piece. Like our sex and our fetish and the way we show up to each other is often reenacting violations that we experienced as kids because we were targets for the way we moved and walked and our feminine nature. And I find that to be such a powerful experience for most gay men that I know and my experience, that we don't even know there's another way because it was lived with us for so long. Like when you said, I didn't even know I was sexually violated. It came late. Same here. I didn't either. But my entire sexual development and into my 20s with men was literally a reenactment of being violated over it. Because what I knew is what initiated me into sexuality, being molested at 5, right? And then many times after that. So that's an important piece of this discussion as well. Because when I see the kind of men, and I don't mean that in a rude way, that my dearest friends hook up with on these apps, I see really traumatized men. I see men that are only posting pictures of their penises. They're objectifying themselves. I see men that can't make eye contact. I hear stories of them having to use uppers to get an erection, which means they're actually not turned on, so they're forcing themselves to perform. And I'm really grateful for you saying how you felt violated and had to drink and use things to bypass that, because it's in kind of the common mainstream conversation around sexual violation. It's so through a female lens because it's obvious. Not that it doesn't happen to them, obviously, but it's obvious. It's less obvious how much men violate themselves without realizing it too. And so I appreciate you speaking to that. Before I go to Tim, I just want to ask you, Al, can you give a little insight in your personal experiences, your professional ones, observations around this piece of after men in a relationship or not, gay men, either way, get into the apps versus kind of the non-dopaminergic hookup we had before with Craigslist and such? How do you notice them changing? Like, how does the mind change? How does the way they connect change the relationship? Like, what have you observed in that pattern?
Well, I'm one of those people that you were talking about earlier. I was in a very long-term monogamous relationship. And then post-COVID, opened it up, and then it didn't go very well. And now as a single man, now trying to navigate this experience. And, for I guess like maybe last year I was having more just kind of experiences with men that left me very feeling just used or very ick afterward. And, it's like, okay, they got what they wanted and they left. Where I always, I was starting to feel like, okay, this doesn't feel good, and I realized I'm more of a demisexual type of person where connection and is more important to me than the actual just getting off. So, I mean, I do feel that there is just this new normalcy that is coming within the gay community, within couples, where they are trying to reinvent the parameters of a relationship. And instead of being like, we were always taught, okay, you get together with somebody as a gay couple, you could have possibly a kid, buy a house and all this and live happily ever after. But I think that the sexual experience with, not just gay couples, with all couples, sex tends to dissipate after a period of time. And gay men are like, well, hey, I can disassociate love and sex, so let's open this up. And, from what I am observing between friends, colleagues, just people that I've had conversations with, even on apps, is that it isn't healthy and that it is not something that is helping the relationship. It's actually hurting it more and more and more, where couples are growing apart and just becoming more or less roommates and friends and just trying to chase this sexual craving through these apps. And like Naveed had said, it's this dopamine hit, and that you could, go on an app and within an hour have somebody at your doorstep. And that's not healthy.
Yeah, there's a couple things coming up as you're speaking. I'm getting through your words, like what Tim was saying, around the difference of when I think of Tim's relationship with this long, decade, deep, like potent relationship where there was this trust and permission. If something arose in me, this opportunity arose, I'm allowed to take it as long as I let him know, for a lot of practical, emotional, spiritual reasons. That compared to your words, I'm chasing something. That's a really big difference that I want to highlight. And that's why I don't say, why is polyamory destroying the gay community? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, why are hookup apps affecting the gay community? Are they destroying it? Are they helping it? And I think when a partner, even if one partner, and we see this a lot in heterosexual, I mean, I've seen this a lot in my heterosexual couples, where the man will either secretly or openly start using apps because, just like you said, the sexual interest has dried up, something has shifted. In my opinion, in my experience, if you're not using the newfound experiences with someone else as a bridge, then connect to your partner that you've lost sex with, you just become more distant from your partner because you're not actually restoring something within the relationship. Instead, you're getting something externally, but like you said, you're chasing something. So if you visualize a chase, you literally have your back turned toward the relationship, chasing something else. And it's interesting when you said about feeling ick, feeling used, like they just came and left, literally. Naveed's share about it being a game, it's like he's giving insight of exactly your experience. It's a game for some people. I don't even think always as conscious as Naveed's being with it. I think subconsciously it's a game for some people. Like, how many points can I score this week? Or how soothed can I get? Or how big is his dick? Or how well can he make me feel? Like, it's this thing of matching things up in a very cognitive way, like you would playing a game, but you're doing it with real bodies. And Al is a beautiful representation of a body that's actually seeking connection. If there's connection mixed with pleasure, like bonus, but you're seeking connection and you're just getting someone playing a game with your body, that's an important thing to consider here. Tim.
Yeah, thanks for that, Al, and also Luis. The gamification thing was coming up for me, and this is like where I want to maybe loop back to something I said at the intro. Um, I see people like the most hookup app that I know of right now is Sniffies. It's like it displays a map. It shows you people what they're wanting to do. It doesn't show you, it shows you body parts and it shows you what they want to do, where they are. It's very much like you can have all of this. So we talked already about how apps are designed to be to keep your attention, to keep you on them, whether to sell you ads, to keep you subscribing, whatever it is. They are money-making enterprises. Each individual who engages is one human being against a vast array of data and an algorithm. It's an unfair match, and they're winning. They're winning against the human beings who are there. Like, I would fully say the apps are winning. But how I think they're winning in the gay community, these hookup apps, is not, in my mind, any different than how Instagram is winning or how Facebook is winning. What do you look for on Instagram? How many likes you got? What do you look for on Sniffies? How many loads you got? What do you look for on Twitter? How many retweets you got? It's the same, that idea that you're sort of like you said, cognitively and in a game player win-win-win sort of a way, you're seeking a reward of attention and of that you can actually apply statistics to. Like, there are people on Sniffies, it blows my mind, honestly. They're on the message board and they're like looking for sex, and they keep a tally. They're like 8 loads, who's next? 25 loads, who's next? The same person is reposting, and they could be lying, but like that mentality is there. So like what corporate tech culture has done in so many ways is to take our innate, soft human desire for connection, which exists in male bodies as well as female bodies, perhaps differently, but let's go into the universal here. We are mammals looking for security and connection and touch and things like that. They've taken an innate desire, an innate longing, and gamified it. And what troubles me, and I think what probably troubles you, Luis, that sparked this, is like for somebody to wear as a badge of honor, as an identity, or as something you're proud of, look how much I got. Look how much I got. And that points me to another big vein of what I would call my gay experience or gay culture, which is when you grow up without mentors, role models, and most of us in this Zoom appear to be, this is where Naveed's going to clock me. I'm going to say appear to be 30 or more, but we'll see. He can reveal his age later. But like, the internet was not a part of my childhood. Like, I couldn't even find representation. So my experience of gay men and me in general is that there is a huge delay in growing up. And so like my personal experience, which I may have mentioned at the beginning, is like my experience with the hookup app started in my 40s. So I'm becoming like a kid with access to this powerful tool of arousal and stimulation that I never had before. And the culture is saying, yay, good job, good job, good job, good job. And at a certain point, I start to notice how it doesn't feel good. It takes me a while, but at a certain point, I begin to notice that. And so like my experience of the delay of maturity and moving from boy into man, I'm definitely want to check out your podcast, Naveed, around this topic, is like, how can that happen? And if all we have is this arena of the apps to play it out in, man, that's not a fair playing field. Final point I'll just throw in there, because these are all the things that keep coming up, are like, where else can we do it? Where else do queer men and gay men have forums and places of connection? There used to be physical places. There still are, but you know what I mean? Like, there used to only be physical places. And the threat of hookup culture, I mean, that goes way back. Like hunters hunting for prey, parks at night, like the energy's always been there. But these apps are co-opting it in a way that has removed physical place from our repertoire. And so you don't encounter a whole body. And where else can we do that? Like, so we, by default, we keep falling into Instagram. By default, we keep falling into the hookup apps. By default, we keep falling into capitalism unquestioningly. So these structural pieces are way beyond gay culture, but they're profoundly impacting us as well. And that question, I guess I would love to pose it to everyone on this panel, like what is the alternative forum for gay men to be in community? If we pretended that we excised or took away the hookup apps, what would we have?
We're going to get there in a moment because one word, girl. Girl. So a couple things I want to say, and then we'll play with this. Yes, I think that is so beautiful, the arrested development piece. You know, what I was trying to say earlier with Rio's experience about how often, not always, but often gay boys will be targeted by some kind of predator, by some kind of person, whether it's just bullies, whatever it is. There's a target on our back growing up a lot of times. Gay, bisexual, feminine, queer boys. That in itself, whenever you have anyone that has childhood developmental trauma will also have some form of regression, something that's a little undeveloped. So when you say this beautiful piece of where are the mentors, you know, for a lot of gay men, there's, especially your generation, no representation. I was just talking with someone the other day who was saying to me, you know, when I was gay, he was saying when I was gay, there was no such thing as a coming out party. There was no reward. There was no like gay club. Like there was zero incentive or desire to be gay. His whole life, he was trying to tell himself he wasn't until he couldn't anymore because there was just nowhere to even go into. There was no forum, like you're saying. And that kind of repression of self and that condensing does arrest a certain developmental stage of knowing self and settling into self and relating to self. There's a lot of dissociation that comes up around self. So similar to pornography of, you know, where does a 13-year-old boy take all of his emotions and sexual arousal and aggression and frustration? Takes it to porn. He doesn't have a father to take it to. He doesn't have a place where all the boys do rites of passages for 10 years. Like he has nowhere to go. The rites of passage are gone and we've replaced them with porn. And same thing here. The gay community of elders is not directly accessible. So there's sniffies. You know, it's the same kind of thing. Like we lost the initiation rituals and the elders and the community and collective that like touches people into their bodies in a very physical way throughout development, not just one thing, but, you know, for many, many years, it's throughout puberty, becoming an adult. And without someone mirroring to you what this can look like and how it can be, you seek it for yourself because just like you said, all humans desire connection. They desire to matter. They desire to be seen, to feel pleasure, to be touched. And where I would not disagree, but I would add why I'm so focused on the gay community around this is I see these apps targeting them the same way I would see Instagram targeting a vulnerable 14-year-old girl with an eating disorder. To me, it targets me the same way as a man, a 38-year-old man, and the same way it does, but she is more vulnerable. A 13, 14-year-old with eating disorder is way more vulnerable. If you put a man with a woman and you give them sniffies, I promise you, it's not going to go anywhere like it's going to go if you give two men sniffies. So to me, it's like the vulnerability of a gay man already because unchecked arousal, not knowing to do with testosterone, not having the elders representation, feeling marginalized, any trauma that goes along with it, mixed with, like you said, here's your one place to express and be yourself. That to me is like it's like a new form of predatory nature, you know, but this way, corporate predator. So I highlight the gay experience in the gay community in this the most because I see them as most vulnerable to sex apps. You don't see a prominence in this with women. And when you do, you hear them mourning it, not saying it's their way of life or not saying they're pretending to love it. So there's some check and balance in place biologically, like I say, with a woman Same happens with trans women. Even when you have a certain amount of estrogen in your body for a long period of time, you get these different levels of disgust that you don't have when you have testosterone. I experienced that growing up intersex. I don't know if everyone knows that here, but the first, 14 years of my life, I was estrogen dominant and developed breasts and hips, and I felt like a girl. I was not a boy in my mind until my body suddenly had a genetic shift that then allowed me to make testosterone because I was born with testes still, but I had this high output of estrogen. And I remember those years, it was a whole different body I was navigating. I was not hyper aroused. I was not easily turned on. I was easily disgusted. I required a lot of connection before I felt safe even being close to somebody. And when my testosterone came in, and a couple years later, it was like two different bodies. So I'm just bringing this up again because I do think the biological sex difference is so important to me more than identity difference, because there is the check and balance when you have this estrogen dominant body, as we call women, which says like that really feels bad. They feel it on a level we have a hard time, or a level that we can easily dissociate from. It's a level that's harder to dissociate from because the feminine energy pulls you more into that felt sense. So I'm just saying all this to say I agree with every gorgeous thing you just said. And I'm kind of pushing back continuously as I wouldn't say it's the same with heterosexual couples. I wouldn't. I think the gay community is way more vulnerable to these apps. Naveed, what's coming up for you? And then I want to go into a roundabout with your question about other forums.
Yeah. I mean, my heart's doing the thing yours was, Rio. It's just like pounding, and it's like, yeah, to your question, Tim, like, where else do we go? That's the pounding. There's this deep grief. I'm just like, where else do I go? This is what we're doing here is the first thing that's touched anywhere close to this, besides the one-on-one conversation you and I had, Luis. So I'm just I just want to pause for me and maybe for the listener too, like, can we let this in this moment? And this is special for me. Yeah. And I want to say that because I'm so with you with this corporate predation, predatorness. And I want to say that part of the reason I use these apps is because I want to show myself that I'm not alone. In a sense, porn is so isolating, and that's been my primary and most males' primary's experience of sexuality. It's so isolating. And there's a sense that actually these apps have provided a step away from the isolation. It's still the same mechanism for sure. It's as Al said, there's a dissociation between love and sex. The same mechanism is running, but I like to think sometimes that maybe it's a step up. Maybe I'm moving through from boys to men. I'm going now into physical connection. Instead of just watching a guy suck another guy's cock, I'm the one doing it. And then I'm the one stuck with, do I have AIDS now? Do I have HSV? Do I have whatever? Like, I go through a lot more in my body that actually is allowing me to integrate the experience in a way that I wasn't before. So I just want to name, like, there is a beauty when there's nothing else when there's no other good systems for me to connect with men. There is something that these hookup apps are providing. It's not ideal for me. It doesn't integrate well, but I want to look at some of the positives there. And I have never been violated on these apps in any way, but I'm coming to it. I'm 36, verse bottom, 6.5 cut, all the things you would see on the app. I'll send you my dick pics later. By the way, I want you on the podcast, Tim and Rio and Al. All of you can. Luis has already been on, so you're all welcome to be guests on the show. In addition to listening to it, I'd love to have you. I've never been violated by other men. The men that I find on the apps, at least the ones that I've maybe been blessed to find or energetically match with, they're similar to me. Yes, they're dissociated. Yes, we're not really looking at each other, but there's a way that we both know we have this human need, and we're using this app as the interface. I have only been violated by the technology. I have only been violated by the dopamine producing cycle that I go into, but not by the men. And that's where I want us to be tough on these systems, tough on these institutions, tough on these corporate predation, and really soft on each other.
Listen, do you hear something? That's the sound of warm, delicious, glorious Costa Rica. And this is where I am headed next. On February 28th, I'm hosting a week-long retreat at the stunning Blue Spirit Retreat Center, and it's going to focus on recovering from emotional eating and people-pleasing by finding safety within. And there's truly not a better place for me to teach this than Blue Spirit. Blue Spirit has created a literal sanctuary for wildlife, native plants, and people who are lucky enough to retreat there. Picture a vibrant jungle canopy atop a hill with a saltwater infinity pool, yoga classes, next-level local cuisine, and beautiful views of the land and sea. Not to mention the very special, magical experience of wading in the saltwater pool while a crew of little baby monkeys rests on the branches above you. Your room is situated just minutes from the most beautiful ocean I've ever met, with tide pools featuring everything from blue octopus to starfish and a rainbow variety of tropical fish. And yes, I will be personally introducing you to each and every one of them. So let's go into the retreat itself. I'll be joined by my dear friends Zach and Camille as we teach you the art of finding safety in yourself, especially as it relates to fawning and people-pleasing and eating habits, which are all very connected. I'm going to teach you how to eat to recover from stress and trauma, how to use food cravings as a compass for unmet needs, how to tend to your capacity for being seen and being uncomfortable so you can stop fawning so much, and how to embody and ground big emotions and sensations that arise in your body. It's an easy flight to the airport, and Blue Spirit will manage your transportation from there. Visit holisticlifenavigation.com and click on events for more information, or click on the link in the episode details. We will be waiting for you on the other side in glorious, warm, vibrant Costa Rica. That's a beautiful way to put it, because I think that seeing that bridge, right, of I'm isolating with porn, and now there's this next step of I'm with another body. I think that's what's so beautiful and brutal about this as an addictive thing. And it's kind of the next piece of speaking to what Tim brought up about just the dopaminergic addictive response that we are being programmed to have. Like it's a product, it's set up that way to give you this result. Just like any social media, I completely agree. I think when you are making that next step to connection and contact, you're getting a really important need met. I think where we need to be soft on each other and, like you say, like hard on these actual institutions, but not institutional corporations, is how do we notice, okay, the need is actually for platonic intimacy. It's not always sexual. You know, like, where's the cuddle app? Like, you know, can we find this way to get something that's like, this is a no sex app, but it's a place where we meet up to cuddle, or it's a place where we hold hands, look into each other's eyes. You know, where's there this middle place? Because we're both here for a connection that we might not be getting because we're addicted to this and we're dissociated. Who is the one, once you know, take the candy and get into the house with this person you never met, which one says, pause, why are we here? You know, who's the one that says, can we have some tea first? Who's the one that says, did you have a hard day? Do you need to cry? Like, where's the humanity, the humanizing part? That's where I see it being our responsibility, or anyone that is in this experience of using these apps and meeting a lot of people, is, you know, who pauses that? Because the predatory nature of it is it preys on that really beautiful, innocent need for connection. And the connection is what we're addicted to. This is why so many people will have the orgasm, and even, like I was saying, like, feel icky and violated, because they didn't want that. They wanted the connection. So it's almost like with Tim's question, well, where else do we go? It's such a massive jump of, like, here I am in my room. Okay, there's coffee shops, there used to be gay bars, but now we jump from being alone in my room to just having 20, 30 minutes of sex with someone, and then they ghost me and they block me and I never see them again. You know, it's like, in a way, I prefer to be alone in my room when that's the only outcome. But I think what you're getting at, the beauty of it here is it invites connection. So it starts to pull you out of isolation. But then the question we can all kind of ask ourselves is, then when I'm with this individual, are we actually connecting, or do we stay isolated and dissociated? What comes up for you, Rio? And if you wouldn't mind also adding alternative forums, that question Tim posed.
Yeah. When you were talking about intentionality of if you are hooking up, that moment of who are you, how are you, and that connection point, I think the thing that it made me think of is my current relationship with social media, Instagram specifically, and how I've needed to take a break. And I work a lot with my own spirit guides, and I focus a lot on how I feel energetically, emotionally, and spiritually when interacting anywhere in the world, especially in the digital world. And I've taken a practice of deleting Instagram from my phone until I want to go use it. And so when I download it again, I take that time to consciously say, okay, I call on my spirit guides as I enter this forum, and I ask to only be directed to things that are of my highest good or for the highest good of others, and away from things that are not. And it makes me conscious of what I'm doing there. And in that moment, I can then, as I engage, so this is what leads back to hookup apps, is the ability to be conscious when going into that space, perhaps writing a profile, because when I was using hookup apps, the later portion of my time using them, I put into my profile that this is who I am, this is where I'm coming from, this is what I'm looking for, something that wasn't a hookup, but was more about connecting with another person and engaging in sexual relationship that felt like it was coming from the heart and honored each other. And so in doing that, I did meet people who are interested in that as well. And we would get to have an opportunity to chat a while online and then in person. And so many men are looking for the same thing, but are afraid to put it into their profile because they're afraid that they're not going to meet anybody. So I think that the bridge can be that intentionality and actually saying what you want, because I would say the majority of people do want that and are just afraid to talk about it.
And I'm going to respond to that, but before you close this part, do you know any alternative places besides the apps? Like, what have you experienced as a gay man physically in the world?
Well, I'm 50, so gay bars were the place for me going out. And I lived in neighborhoods for most of my life. And now I live very far away from cities, but I'm also in a relationship. So there's a difference here. But even in the times where I was, yeah, I won't go there. I'll stay focused.
You're allowed to go there if you want.
Well, I'm just trying to stay focused on where do we actually meet? And that's a potent question. And I wonder, like for myself, I lead and hold space for a group of gay men, and have a community that we're building. And it's not one that is based around sex. And it's actually one where we can safely talk about sex and our own individual relationships. But I've explicitly said that there's no flirting with each other, and because that can be the easiest meeting point for us, that I find that we actually want more of just to be with each other than to actually have sex with each other. So for me, it's more about how can I be in spaces with other gay men from a heart-centered place and feel safe? Because so many of us have so many layers of walls that even these men that have been in this community for months, it takes a few months for them to actually speak what's on their heart and what's actually happening in their lives. And when they do, permission all around. It's such an important thing. But as far as connecting and finding sex in real life, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, one thing I'm getting from your share that feels important to me, I love that you said the word intentionality, like having the intention on your actual profile. Because I've said this to my friends and clients that I've worked with around this exact experience, gay men that have this experience with their not their profiles, but going into what they think is going to be this really deep hookup that might turn into a friendship or a boyfriend or just even more hookups with the same person, just something that's consistent on some level, and literally getting blocked. Like it shocks me the amount of men I hear that will sleep with a man like in a really deep, intimate way for hours even. And then the next day they can't contact them and they've just disappeared. And then one of my friends is like, and then a year later, the same guy forgot he blocked me and he reaches out to me and then realizes it was me and blocks me again. I'm like, how brutal. Yeah, that's so brutal. But the piece I'm getting at is there's a lack of intentionality. Because when I've looked at my friends and my clients' profiles, I'm like, show me what you're putting out. They're objectifying themselves without even knowing it. Like Naveed did, with all due respect. Like, here are my stats. This is what you can like about me. This is what you can expect. This is what will turn you on. This is what you can imagine. This is what you're coming for. I think the piece that I'm getting from this that feels important for us to start interrupting this and kind of playing with the algorithm, or like fucking with the algorithm, is how do we put a little space of making it a non-sexual experience? Because I think what's missing from all these things is the amount of time and energy we put into the addictive nature of pursuing a sexual connection, because it's like that's all that's been marketed to us. This is also part of, to me, about actually the latent homophobia of the gay community being marketed sex, objectification, sex. Like that's all a gay man is someone that wants to sleep with another man. It's like a gay man is so much more than just wanting to fuck another guy. But this algorithm, as Tim has brought in, this product keeps saying this idea of, no, this is what you are. This is what the culture is. It's part of it, as it is for anyone. It's like if you see a straight man and all he thinks about once he was fucking a woman, you would call him a sex addict. It wouldn't be, that's what a lot of straight men do. That's like, you have an issue with sex. But with a lot of gay men, it seems, well, that's what it is to be gay. So I'm curious what it's like if people, especially people listening that want to play with this, if they do what you've done, if they put in their profile, even on a hookup app, like, I know this is a hookup app. I'm actually not here to hook up. You will not sleep with me on the first encounter. I want coffee. I want to go to a movie. I want to walk in a park with you. I need to hang out with you a couple times and then we'll have mind-blowing sex. Like, imagine if that was the first piece. That's what I think is missing from the conversation. Because Tim brings a beautiful point of, where else do you go? When you're a marginalized group, there's a small amount of you, and unless you're in a gayborhood or a city, or you're in an era where there were gay bars and easy places to show up to, you don't have a predictable place to be met. Instead, you have the fear, as I had growing up, of if I look at that guy wrong and he's straight, I'm fucked. And that's a fear that a lot of gay men live with when they go out in public, and it's not like a designated gay space. So I think there needs to be this bridge of what's currently available, because there's so much that's missing. We got rid of the physical and now we have this strange little app addicting everybody. How do we bring the physical element back into the app to start titrating out of, what it's addicting us to do? And I want to ask Al a question, and I'm going to go to you, Tim. And then I have a spicy question a little bit to ask. I'm curious about as this is coming up. But Al, what's swirling in your mind, even about the question Tim posed around, like, what's our other option? Like, what have you found from being on these apps after years of not being on them?
Yeah, there's lots swirling around in my mind right now. So many different things. And, I have, put on my profile, about, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm here for. This is what my intention is. And, I don't really communicate with many people because of that. So if I was to change my profile to be more of like, hey, this is what I am open to, or let's just have sex or a hookup, I would have a lot more interactions with people. But for myself, I was in a 25-year monogamous relationship. And now being in my 50s for 2 years, and being single for 2 years, I'm just lost at how to even go on a coffee date. And living in a rural area, as you know, you and I do, it is very challenging. And in my experience, at least in this particular area, is the majority of people are in open relationships, and just looking for sex, not looking for connection or looking for a date or whatever it may be. If I do start talking with somebody, I do say, I'm like, hey, you want to meet for coffee first to see what our vibe is and go on a date. And, they don't respond to that at all. So it's challenging. And I have tried many, many different avenues to put myself in social situations, to meet people. We don't have a place, unless you want to drive an hour or so to meet people one-on-one. So it makes it even more challenging, that and not just for myself, but I'm sure for many men who are listening to this around the country, that you're in these areas that like the only option you have to even have any form of communication with somebody is through an app. And it is very demoralizing and very it's all about sex. And and I've tried the Plenty of Fish, the Match.coms, all that kind of stuff, and and that's virtually impossible to even connect with people in that way too. So and I think something that we haven't talked about, that is very prominent within the gay community, is loneliness. And that this is something that I think, as from a young age to an older age, that the gay experience is very lonely. And especially, if you are a single person, it's a difficult experience for myself anyway.
Yeah, there's a couple things come up for me I wanted to say, but before I do, I wanted to ask you, if you compare your experience of like misattuned connections, right? Where a man comes over and you're expecting like a deeper connection, or it is a beautiful connection, you have physical pleasure, and they're gone and you feel kind of left or abandoned or shocked, or even those moments where you feel kind of icky and used. If you compare that to the other outcome, which is I'm lonely because my intentions filter out like 90% of guys on this app, do you prefer the loneliness, or do you find yourself still even, let's say, risking, right? I'm going to feel icky, but at least I won't be alone. Like what, I know it's a very personal question, but where does it go for you?
That's a good question. I think the loneliness outweighs everything. So because of trying to fulfill just some kind of connection, some kind of body contact, some kind of just, even if it's, hey, someone is showing me some form of attention, whether it be for 20 minutes to an hour, in that time, it feels great. But then afterward, I'm still always left with this, oh shit, this kind of sucks. And, I haven't been, in quite a while, really been doing the quote unquote hookups, just because I'm working on myself to not feel that way. And, and if I do meet with somebody, I vet them pretty thoroughly and have a lot of conversations and chatting beforehand, and kind of make, almost like a contract of like, hey, this is what we are, hoping to possibly get out of this, and maybe make this into something that could be a long-term thing. But I still have yet to have that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's touching just for all of us to hear that and for us to consider that for ourselves, because that's where I go back to what Tim said that made me say corporate predators. of the loneliness does always outweigh integrity, doesn't it? There's that incredible quote from Gabor Mate I'm always saying, where attachment always wins over authenticity. And it's within the framework of the fawning response, which is the trauma response where you acquiesce or people please in order to secure a connection. And a lot of what we're talking about here, without saying it, is sexual fawning within these experiences where I don't really want to, I don't feel my body, but God, I want connection. I'm just going to do whatever I can to get connection here. Even if it's a bad experience and the person's like, can I come over again? Like, yes, you can, because you're so lonely. I think it's important for everyone listening, women, straight guys, people that don't relate to this exact experience, but are definitely relating on many other levels, is to understand that piece is loneliness always wins, because we are so, we always hear wired for connection, but it's a requirement. It's not even like you're wired for it. You require it to survive, to have good mental health, to have good digestion, to make the hormones to sleep at night. So much of our physiology, our chemistry is dependent on physical touch. And again, like I said to Rio about, I think in this specifically, again, I keep highlighting the gay community, there needs to be more spaces and more intentional spaces to say, this is a space for guys who want to be platonically intimate for an hour, right? We're going to touch, we're going to hold hands, we're going to tell each other secret, actually having a place where we come together and there isn't the stigma of men being intimate, and there isn't the pressure of having to be sexual, and there isn't even the allowance for it, just so we can get that need met without the app, right? Because it's this need for not being alone and this desire for touch and connection. And as we're talking, I'm just in my mind, I'm like, Zach and I have been saying for a while, Zach's my dear friend, does a lot of group work with me. We've been saying for a while we want to do something in the Hudson Valley for men around platonic intimacy. And the more I'm feeling this and hearing you all, I'm just thinking this is, I think, really important to play with. Because there's men's circles where everyone talks, but I think a male platonic intimacy circle where it's like no sex, if you get aroused, it's not your fault, but there's no sexual contact. And you're there to hold and be held and hold hands and practice what it's like, with your brother in a platonic way, being touched. For me, I think it's one of the most healing things. Specifically for a gay man, it's extremely healing for a heterosexual man, but specific to a gay man, and this is what I'm saying is a generalization, but the majority of the ones I know and experience, my own bisexual experience, gay men are often conditioned that men are for sex. Rio said it beautifully earlier. It's like, I thought the only way to connect with a man was to be sexual. And I know growing up being molested and having a lot of strange sexual experiences with straight men, right, who used me and then would make fun of me the next day. I truly thought, okay, straight men violate me and gay men please me. Like, that was what men were to me. There was no other option. So to see men out of a sexual context and like hold a man and have him hold me, and we didn't have sex in any way, that was, it's something I only did in the last 5-6 years. That has been breathtakingly transformational for my body, because I've been so wired in the conditioning around homosexuality that this is my only option for being with other men. Even my platonic relationships with gay men, we talk about sucking dick all day. It's like, it's still this thing where that's what binds us. It's like, can we get out of this thing where all we are these sexual objects? That's kind of my issue with the conditioning and how it's affected our development and how we see ourselves in each other. Tim, you've had your virtual hand up for a long time. It must be getting tired.
Oh my God.
Tell me.
Yeah, right in this moment, just appreciating that this conversation is happening. Let me maybe propose a beautiful alternative and then give a little caveat to it as well. So here in the Bay Area, a group of us, principally like 4 of us, have initiated over the last year and a half what we're calling the Queer Men's Conscious Collective or community. It started with this, like, everyone, invite all the gay guys because, like I've already heard in this conversation, everybody is having this conflict. Everybody is having unmet longings. Everybody is feeling the discordance between what they're doing and what their body needs on some level. Some of us are looking at it concretely, directly, and having a conversation on Zoom about it. Others are just feeling it. But it's a pretty universal experience in the gay community. So put the call out to, this is my proposed model for correcting, for winning against the apps. And it comes with a big caveat. So put the call out to all your gay male friends, explicitly name this issue. Like, what is going on with us and sex and hookup culture, and what's missing and what do we need? What's not here? Have a potluck at your house, invite all these guys, have them invite guys, organize the event in such a way that people can feel presented, heard, maybe break into groups. Like, we've all done workshops, we've all facilitated experiences like this. From that, see what emerges. For us, what emerged was basically a consensus that we need spaces exactly like you're describing, Luis. Platonic spaces that have intentionality, that have heartfulness, where sex, and we keep talking about the gay bars, wonderful places, but what is a bar? It's like a place to sell alcohol, which is an addictive substance that alters your state. I mean, it's like, even that is still, so it turned into an intention to create regular spaces where men come together in this way, without sex, without alcohol. And the format that we designed was twofold. One was a monthly event that was paid in an event space. That was 1 hour of a facilitated practice. We all know like 5 million somatic, beautiful practitioners who can hold space and facilitate some kind of connecting exercise, embodiment exercise for an hour. Then we segued into 2 hours of social time. There were snacks, there were big beds, there were like massage tables, there were chairs, there was music on. Nobody's having sex. People might be cozying up, but so much touch and intimacy and nourishment followed a stage setting of an hour. So give yourself a 3-hour portion of time, 1 hour facilitated, 2 hours free flow with these guidelines on it. So that's been going on monthly. We call it Evening Delight. And then in parallel, we've been programming no-cost events, because I'm the anti-capitalist of the bunch. And I'm like, we need to have something where you don't have to pay $40 to hang out with gay men platonically. Like, what are we talking about here? So those free events have been outdoors, have been porous, and have always included a circle. Like, that's the level of intentionality. And it's just like, we can do more than have sex. We can do more than meet in a bar. The caveat that I'll throw out there, and this was coming up while you were speaking, Al, is like, when you begin to go against a culture and when you begin to go against a corporate structure, how do you do it? Even the events that we are offering are paid events. Should it cost money to have a basic human need met like this? Should we be paying for therapy when the capitalist system has fucked us up in such a way that we need therapy? You know, like, just the repetition of these cycles of non-human based mechanisms bringing us together, money, sex, etc. So it's problematic. We've watched the participation, and it's primarily a WhatsApp group. We've watched the participation in the group dwindle, attendance at the events dwindle, and at the last no-cost event I did, nobody showed up, even with 5 RSVPs. So it's like, that's the caveat. I'm like, we want something different. We're all sharing that. We try to build a space for it to happen. The space looks like it has a good design, and it still dwindles off. Like, what's going on? Are we that under-resourced? Are we that unwilling to resist primary culture? Like, what's going on? And so, yeah, I find myself really stuck in this dilemma, because that's been our local attempt, and those have been the results.
The attempt is gorgeous and inspiring, and it's a great template for everyone listening. I really hope those of you listening actually go out and do this. Just do one. Don't even think of doing this. Just start with one, even if it's 2 people, even if it's friends. It'd be great to start this. And that question at the end, are we that under-resourced? Your question was answered in my mind by what Al said, where he said, and I'm taking a break from it to work on myself, because I don't want to be at that place where my loneliness outweighs my integrity and I reach out. That's what's missing, for these groups. because I've learned from doing a million groups at this point, you can have the most incredible container where everyone feels safe, where they transform in that moment together, because as a collective, we have the capacity to do so. The issue, just like you said, is they're going home with an addictive substance in their pocket. It's like someone coming to an AA meeting and they're conscious and they're talking and they're crying and they're aware of everything they want to do. And they're like, okay, see you later, grab the Jack Daniels on your way out. It's like, it's impossible to expect, a group of people to work on that if it's not somehow bridging into their life. And Naveed knows this actually, because we do these men's group. The next embodied masculinity group is actually in January. I think it's January 3rd we start. But so if you're listening to this, go register, because we play with this in the group a lot. And I'm just saying, you three, Tim, Rio, Al, you are more than welcome to join the group if you want. It's just like free of charge, just to have your presence there and see what we do and kind of go through with us next year. It's a 6-month virtual program. But what I've learned in that group, similar to what Tim is saying, the first year we did it, it was every other week I did a meeting, and then in between there was an integration session. Same with the next year. But the first 2 years we saw was this dwindling. There'd be like almost 100% attendance for the first month. Then it'd be like 80%. Then it'd be like 60%. And it would just keep falling. And what we realized, especially happened during the pornography month, because we talk about porn, the addictive nature of it, how to eliminate or reduce it, how to play with it in an embodied way. And it's really, really cathartic for these men, because they never, in a collective of other men, explored what it's like to not use porn and then actually share it in real time. But what we did last year that was different was we had these breakout groups, or these smaller groups. So we had 85 or 86 men from all around the world, and we separated them into 4 groups, so like 20-ish men per group. And Naveed had one, the other 3 co-facilitators had a group of 20 men. That allowed this kind of like monitoring and this checking in with, and this like weekly email, like, hey, didn't see you today, are you coming next week? And that engagement outside of our main things held the group in a way we never experienced in 3 years. So we're going to our 4th one next year, and we're hoping to double the amount of participants and have these beautiful spaces for, smaller spaces for men. But I'm adding this to your beautiful vision, because your vision is spot on, is what needs to happen. And because, yes, the majority of people are very under-resourced. The majority of people are not tracking their body when they have the impulse to look at their phone. There's no tracking. There's just the impulse, dissociated impulse. So maybe it's Tim out of 20 guys coming to work with him, and he's the only one that has it. Somehow that has to dip into their personal life, like the accountability piece with recovery, where there's someone almost like a sponsor, right, that's checking in on you. So I think to create these beautiful templates of connection that are platonic and intimate, but have some kind of a sponsorship, some kind of a checking in, something that bridges in between those gaps, is, I think, one way to help people build the resources and the awareness to stay connected and not go into isolation habits. And this, again, is a big part of what drives, in my experience, the sex difference of isolation habits. Is men on a way bigger scale are conditioned to isolate, especially with pornography, in a way women don't experience through development. When I was growing up, if you would write in a journal, people at school would call me a faggot for writing in a journal. Whereas my female friends would write in a journal, and they would get like cute things to put on their pens, and they'd put glitter, and it was like conditioned that good, you're doing introspection, bad, you shouldn't do introspection. So there's also these different generational conditionings of men feel and immediately pull back and isolate. So in my containers, which usually attract several hundred people when I do a program or something, 10%, if we're lucky, are men. If we're lucky. 5% maybe, is more like it. And then they fall off, they disappear. So I see men actually need way more hand-holding for connection, for outreach, for constantly being told and reinforced, you're not going to be hated, I'm not going to make fun of you, gay and straight men, like, you're allowed to be here, please come back, I care about you. I even had an event in the city last year where a gay man was there, and he didn't show up the next day, and I'm like, where is he? And we called him, and he's like, I'm not coming, there's something came up. And I was like, I know what can happen when you have a fear of being seen, and we're doing this work was specifically around being seen by a group. I said, today's the big day. So actually what I did with your sister, Tim, I was, today's the big day where, you get to be seen. It makes sense today would be the day where your body would feel weird or you won't want to come. I just want you to know you can come sick, you can come infected, you can come pussing, like whatever you're feeling, you can come and I will hold you in that. And he started crying. He's like, I never knew I was allowed to just come as I was. And he came, it has this incredible experience. But my point is, out of everyone in the room, it was like the man I had to hold the hand with, because it's so much more work. So I'm just putting that out there for everyone listening. I know we know that, but it's something that can fall really flat when you just expect people to show up because you make a beautiful space. When you've been conditioned for generations to isolate and to feel shame for having a vulnerable expression, it's really, really hard to get that demographic of people, and men are predominantly dealing with that, including gay men are not. People think gay men are better because we're more flamboyant, or and I keep saying we because I'm part gay, but because we're flamboyant or we feel more feminine. But no, as we see, as Al's said and some of you have shared, hookup culture with gay men is no less disconnected than a straight guy just using a woman. It's a male issue, in my opinion. Naveed, go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for all that. Tim, thanks for the queer men's conscious community. I tried for a while on Grindr. After I had that conversation with you, Luis, I changed my profile. I changed it from I want facials to I want cuddles. And I was only going to be cuddling with men. And every man there was so many men who reached out actually, but were very scared. They were like, I love this, and I'm only comfortable doing that in a one-on-one basis to start with. Like, I don't want to do that because my thing was like, I think it was called group cuddles was my profile name. And I have like on Monday, July blank, we're going to gather at my place for group cuddles. And most of the men only wanted like a one-on-one because of all the shame around it. So that was an interesting finding. I can't wait to be in more conversation around this. And Tim, especially with you, because I really align with your vision. I feel a lot of non-linearity here in terms of there's a way in which the marginal communities or the gay communities, like kind of like canary in the coal mine, they're feeling the things that all men feel, but they're doing this transmutation, alchemization work on behalf of the culture that I think is a really powerful thing. And in my own like personal like paradigms, like I follow this yoga, Kayut yoga, which says that you can't work against the restriction. You have to move with the restriction first. If I have a hip restriction, I go into it before I go against it. And I'm just thinking about like how I personally it's so hard to get out of the sexual conditioning. It really is. And so I'm thinking of your groups, and even I'm like in myself, I'm like, I don't really want to go to a like cuddling men's group. Like I can, and maybe I'm resourced in certain ways. I can go dance with my male friends and I have my men's group. Like I actually think that I want the sexual component to be a part of it. So for me, there's a powerful bridge there where almost like Trojan horse mentality, like, can I go into the apps? And because I have like two really good friends from Grindr now, like really good friends that we slept together the first time, and now we're not really sleeping together. And I check in about how one of them, I check in about their jobs and school. Like, so friendships have formed. And so I don't want to throw away the sexual component or call it bad or call it unhealthy. There's a way it's unhealthy for me when I'm not checking in on STI status, because then my body goes into shock, and there are definitely consequences of it. But I'm actually thinking of, groups that kind of hybridize the two. Because yes, I want the cuddles. Yes, I want the intimacy. More than that, I want the non-disposability. I want the feeling of you're not disposable. If I like, I think that's the sadness here of seeing all these beautiful men on the screen. Any one of you, I could have just slept with you and never talked with you again. And here I am getting to actually know about you and your worlds. And that's what fulfills me. That to me, the community is the consistency of knowing you over time. And that's my unmet need more than cuddles and stuff. Maybe because I'm hetero, or maybe because I'm queer and I can go and cuddle with females all the time and I'm like getting that need met. What I really want is like, how do I be in your lives for a long time? And sometimes that means you put your dick in my ass. And sometimes that means we don't do any sexual connection and we just hold each other, but we're moving through this together.
Yeah, there's so much there for me. One thing, I appreciate you saying that not to see sex as the bad thing, because this kind of conversation, someone can take away like sex is the issue. To me, it's disconnected sex is the issue, but so is disconnected talking, disconnected posting on Instagram. Like disconnection is the issue, regardless of what you're doing with it. And when you were talking about all the fear you saw on Grindr around cuddle parties or cuddle puddles, or like a group of cuddle people, that's really telling, because what shocks women over and over again when I talk to them, they can't imagine how a man doesn't feel intimate sucking someone's dick or having sex. Like how you can actually do that. You can put your body into someone else's body, have an orgasm, they can swallow your semen. And that's okay. But looking at them in the eye and cuddling them is like, nope, too far. That's too far. And I think that's something that's really important to speak of again about, that's very male. That's very unique to the male body because of how we are wired because of testosterone. But it brings up to me this whole conversation. It's when my heart isn't able to be involved, that's the pain, that's the suffering. When I go get a blowjob and there's no heart there, that's an issue for me. Right? If I'm getting a blowjob, my heart is being blown at the same time. We're making eye contact. We're having this beautiful connection. You're like taking me to these places in myself. That's as beautiful as any kind of connection with someone. And so I think this titration of a space where there's platonic intimacy, so people can gain the capacity to see ourselves outside of a sexualized place for those of us who are very overly sexualized, where it's almost like the only way we see ourselves in others, that would be a good pendulation. And what Naveed just said is interesting, because how important would it be to have curated sensual or sexual experiences, and then afterwards you must connect to the person? Because the typical response is a flight response for most men. I have the orgasm, I want to get away from you as soon as possible, because now I'm softening, now I'm opening up out the door. In that arousal place, men don't get open when they're aroused as easily. We have to work with that heart work with our cocks and our hard-ons and the way our sexual energy moves. We can have sex from a shut down place, but the orgasm tends to really soften us, and that's when most men shut down and run away, even from women. This is a male thing, not just a gay thing. But I like that kind of, if we look at those two pendulation points, some of us do need sex to be removed because that's been so overfocused and we're conditioned solely that way. And some of us need then to experience, well, can I have sex and not run? Can I have sensuality and stay? Like, to also curate that, to me, is part of what Tim was speaking about earlier. Where do we go as gay, bisexual men and learn with other men how to do this marginalized sexuality that not many people know because it's not a mainstream experience? It's like these are these little chambers. This is why I love subculture. This is why I'm down for what you're saying, Tim, about like, how do we go outside of this corporate kind of mainstream capitalist system? It's like you have to do it in your living room. You have to be the thing you want to see. You can't complain about it. And I love this conversation because we're feeding this idea for a lot of people who've never even thought they could think it out loud. And you're all giving this really specific wisdom for representing what people are feeling on their own and don't see anyone talking about it anywhere, especially the way we're talking about it. We're not talking about it from an anti-gay perspective. We're talking about it as people who are in it, who have lived it, who experienced it, actually want more. And I would say, we're going to close. I'm going to go to each of you for a short closing of just what's alive for you at the end of all this. But what's alive for me at the end of all this is I just want to say to men in general, as well as gay men, like, you are more. You are more than your sex response. You are more than objectification. You don't have to live that way. You're allowed to want more for yourself and to feel your heart more and to soften more. And this whole conversation is, I feel so softened. I wish I was in a room with all of you. I just want to like hold you, because it feels so nice to have this collaborative conversation. I feel like we're all doing it to work toward this, like we want better for each other. And it feels so beautifully collaborative instead of like a competitive male space or a debate. I'm just learning so much and I feel so grateful to each of you. I want to go around and just get a really brief closing because we're running out of time. So just what wisdom is in your body from this that you want to share? I want to start with you, Al, but if you need to take a moment to feel it, take a moment.
Okay, my mouse disappeared. Oh boy, take a moment to feel it. This was definitely a wonderful conversation. And meeting you three men has been very eye-opening and a lot of great ideas and has helped me in ways that I'm still processing. I really love what you have all said, Tim, especially, you putting together these groups, I wish that that was something that was more available. So if you are going to do this, Luis, with Zach, count me in. And I hope some men out there connect with something that one of us have said. And if we could, in some way, shape, or form, have helped someone navigate their experience, then I think our job is not done, but is definitely contributing to this community. There aren't many conversations like this happening. I follow a lot of different podcasts and it is these topics do come up, but in a very different manner, or like how to encourage more hookups, or how to encourage the sexual experience rather than trying to understand it and navigate it. And I think that this is an important conversation that hopefully more will come of this conversation, from you or from Naveed and Tim and Rio. I would love to participate more in them. So thank you.
Thank you, love. Rio.
I've felt my body soften over through this conversation, a little, my own walls, my own, ooh, what are we going to be talking about here? And it not being a debate, but a collaboration, right? To be able to fully hear what other people are saying, even if there's something that I don't totally align with, to hear it and to be able to take it in and to not feel a defensiveness. And I've really appreciated this conversation because of that, and appreciate each of you. And the thing, I think you asked what wisdom might we want to impart. And I think the thing that I so often wished for in hearing conversations like these, or seeking conversations like these, was for me that it is sex positive to explore why we have the patterns that we have. And I usually only saw it in one of two ways, that it was discussed that if you don't are just totally free with your relationship with sexuality, and you embrace every kink and you embrace every pattern that you have, then you're shaming yourself and you're living a shamed life. Or the other side, which was repress everything because it's bad. And I think that there's a middle space where it is important for us to explore, why do I have the kinks that I have? Not to get rid of them necessarily, but to understand why I feel compelled to go towards this thing. And the more that each of us can do that, the more we can show up from a space of intentionality and heart. And that, to me, feels like a missing piece of the conversation as a collective.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I love that being sex positive is still questioning and learning about what drives you and what's under that. It's beautifully put. Tim.
Yeah, Naveed, Luis, Rio, Al, thank you so much for creating space and energy around this. Primary emotional experiences of gratitude, a little bit excitement as well, because I have to put in a tiny bit of parentheses just because it kept coming up for me over the course of our convo. Is there are no women here, there are no identified straight men here, and we're talking about them in some ways that their voices don't get to answer to. So just like throwing that out there, that this has been like a rarefied little ecosystem that we set up, and it's been our personal perspectives around all this. The thing that I'm kind of left with from a question point of view, or like a not wisdom, but like just like maybe a wise question to hold, is what exactly, and Rio, you almost took the words out of my mouth. It's like, what is liberation? Like, I'm 53. This is, as far as I know, my one experience to be embodied. This is my one life. And every time, not to shame myself, but every time that I go into a compulsive pattern around getting the dopamine, the algorithm rewards, etc., like, of course, it feels good in the short term. There are a lot of food analogies you can make about that too. But this is really my one shot. And what do I want most in this life? I want to feel free and at ease. I mean, that can take many different forms. As a mammal, it's going to take the form of connection with other mammals for sure. But that's what I want. And so, holding that question of what actually feels like freedom to me is really a potent one, because sexual liberation, freedom, even the terms that we use, hell yeah, break the shackles of these fucking religious, heterosexual, patriarchal bullshit things. But like, okay, maybe we're free to act, we're free, but like, what feels like freedom in my body? And not just in action, what feels like freedom? So I'm really left with that question. And the only other thing I'll add is, if you really want to see the point, the actually like bloody point of this male solo, like loneliness thing, there's like a community of people who identify as solosexuals, where their identity is, I'm a person who masturbates alone at home with porn, and that's my identity. I don't want to have sex with other people. And then they go to virtual forums to find other guys like that to talk about it with. So it's like, if you ever needed to see that contradiction, like super highlighted about how even loneliness gets fetishized as a way to connect with other people, it's like, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's excellent.
Yeah, much love. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. And thanks for that piece about, what is liberation for you? What does it feel like? Because we can have the story and the action, but what's my body actually doing in that moment? I love that. There's a lot of answers in there if everyone pauses to feel into that. Naveed, close us out.
Yeah. Thank you again for bringing us together. What a gift. What a gift to be able to do this. I'm feeling like men, and especially queer men, gay men, but just men, like, we are wounded and we hold the medicine. We have massive developmental traumas and we hold the wisdom. And I just feel that in this call together. I feel the paradox of all of this. Like, you are more than sex, and sex gets to be included. In my world, I love the transpersonal nature of sex and how it brings us together. And like I said, I love also breaking bread with my brothers and sharing meals. And I'm left with Bayo Akumulafe's words. He says, "May we find more beautiful ways to get lost together." And I really think that we're getting lost. We're getting lost in the apps. And it feels so good to know that other men here have been on that journey of getting lost. And now let's get lost together.
Beautiful, beautiful intention. Way to sum this all up. I want everyone listening I want to thank you for your time because it's a big topic and we went to a lot of different places. Thanks for listening. I hope you share this with anyone who might need to hear it. And just attuning to these beautiful men here, they're all practitioners. They all do work with people. They all are incredibly resourced. If one of them really lights you up and you feel safe with one or you feel open, reach out directly. Their information will be in the show notes and you can work with them around this topic or anything you think that might parallel. So thank you all so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching today's episode. Please like and subscribe if you found it useful, and let me know in the comments what you want me to cover next. I have developed a 4-week self-paced course that takes 18 years of my personal and professional experience and puts it into one place where you can easily and quickly learn the foundations of recovering from stress and trauma. How does the food you eat affect your stress levels? How do the relationships in your life create stress or peace? How does the relationship you have with your body allow you to feel happier and more settled? I will cover all this and so much more in this 4-week self-paced course. And the best part, it's self-paced. You don't have to sign up at a certain date or finish it at a certain time. It's yours for life, and it's waiting there for you when you're ready to finish it. Throughout this course, I'll be teaching you philosophies and practices that combine my 3 favorite modalities: somatic experiencing, embodied parts work, and nutrition. For more information on this course, click on the link in my episode details.